Hey, my name is IMAN GADZHI. I went from a 17-year-old high school dropout to millionaire by the time I was 18 by building my own social media marketing agency from scratch, and I'm one of the passionate few. So I just finished up this incredible interview with my man, Omar. Honestly, I can tell you one thing about Omar, even just off camera, he is one of the most hands down genuine people I've ever met. You got things out of me in this interview that I've actually never shared publicly. And to be honest, things I've never even shared to my friends. And that says a hell of a lot just about how much comfort you build with the person you're interviewing. And I said, just how much, past the views, past the content, past the B-roll, the Instagram snippets, like you just care. And I could tell that from minute one. So yeah, in this interview, we share a little bit about how I went from a 17-year-old high school dropout to millionaire by the age of 18 using social media marketing. And it's a good one. You're in for a treat.
Welcome to this episode of the Passionate Few podcast today. It's your host, Omar, and today we get to sit down with the young and fascinating IMAN GADZHI. Known as the entrepreneurial whiz kid with his digital marketing agency, IMAN has generated millions of dollars in revenue for his clients and also in his own business. And in this interview, we hear how IMAN grew up in the UK with a single mother, facing tons of adversity, but would ultimately prove resilient, knowing that he had to become a provider at a very young age and generate his own multi-million-dollar business in his teens. So in this interview, I want to encourage you guys to sit back and pay attention because it's an amazing story that proves with resilience, determination, and focus, and a laptop, that you can make anything happen in your life. And also, if you're interested, to stay tuned to the very end and also check out the link in the description below. We put together a free masterclass so IMAN can show you his step-by-step system to show you how you can build your own digital marketing agency, replicating his system for success. So with no further ado, I want to encourage you guys to sit back, relax, enjoy the empowering and inspiring interview with the high school dropout turned multi-millionaire, IMAN GADZHI. Enjoy. Thanks so much for being on the show today, IMAN.
Thank you so much, my man.
Absolutely, man. It's so great to have you on. I know you're in LA, so I'm glad we made the opportunity
You're a neck of the woods,
happen. Yes. Let's get right into it. A lot of people might know you from YouTube or social media. Obviously, you're one of the foremost experts in the social media space, helping people build their own agencies and get clients. But take us back, because not too long ago, you were broke, high school dropout, came from a rough situation at home with your mom and dad. Take us back, man. You're 19 years old now, but where did you grow up and sort of how did this journey all begin for you?
So I actually grew up in a place called Dagestan, south of Russia. You've seen Borat, right? Yeah, so imagine like Borat, like that exact same like setup, like little village, like no toilet, like literally like shack.
Kazakhstan, yeah.
Yeah, except in Russia. Just plug that same thing in Russia. That's literally where I'm from. So it was growing up, my real dad, I've met him once, my biological father. So he was alcoholic, abusive. So a little bit rough. I mean, as I said, I only met him once when I was like 9 years old, but he left before I was even born. So that was a little tough. My mom was like 23 at the time. So I was actually raised by my grandma and grandpa. My mom was working like 3 jobs. So I guess whenever I do interviews, my mom is always the thing I get like a little emotional about.
Your why, right? She was your motivation early on.
Choke up a little, yeah.
So
she's like my idol, my hero.
I love that, man. Very cool. So how did you go from there in Russia to London? What was that transition?
So my mom was actually in Moscow for some work, and she met my stepdad. They kind of like hit it off, like kind of did some long distance dating for like a year. Eventually she like moved over there and took me with her. And my stepdad, it was like this like fairy tale. My stepdad was quite wealthy. So it's like, like this little like Russian village boy and his mom like going all the way over to London. Like I remember flying for this first time. It was like absolutely crazy seeing like color TV for the first time. Like it was like, I remember when I got to London, like Russia, I had like 8 channels or something. It was all like black and white. And when I got to London, like 999 channels. It was dope. But
how old were you at the time?
I was 3 years old.
Oh, 3. Wow.
Yeah, so I was 3 years old. So I mean, to be honest, like I don't remember much of Russia. But my dad, or I call my stepdad my dad because I guess he's the only dad I've ever had. So he put me into private school, expensive private school. So as I said, like this is literally like a fairy tale, or supposed to be like a fairy tale ending, little Russian village boy comes over to London, private school, living a good life, living in a great area. And it seemed like that until I was like 6 or 7. That's sort of when, things started to get a bit bad between my stepdad and my mom, and a lot of stuff. My mom's actually getting divorced right now, which is super, super stressful.
Wow.
So a lot of it I actually can't talk about until after the divorce is like finalized. But just a lot of, by the time I was probably like 8 or 9, I probably saw stuff that 30-year-olds hadn't seen.
Just in terms of violence at home.
Actually never violence. Violence was with my with my biological father, but a lot of other stuff that, as I said, like unfortunately I can't talk about right now. But just really like most 30-year-olds wouldn't have seen that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So by the age of like 9 or 10, I'd grown up way, way, way too quick.
And then what did that cause psychologically for you? Because I know, you've talked about it in private, that really like built a big why in you to like want to take care of your mom. Talk to me a little bit about how that started to manifest. How old were you when you started thinking like, man, like I got to provide for my mom? Because you're like 10, 11 years old at this time thinking this way. Most 10, 11-year-olds aren't thinking like that. You know?
So I mean, just like seeing things like, as I said, a lot of stuff I can't talk about, but one example that I think I told you when we first met, it's crazy. I was like 8 years old or whatever. I get a call, pick it up. They're like, hey, this is London Escorts. And I'm like, we're here for, my stepdad's name. And I'm like, oh, sorry, he's not here, blah, blah. My mom walks into the room. She's like, who was that? I'm like, London Escorts, but I not thinking anything of it.
Right.
And I see just this like deep sadness kind of overcome her.
Wow.
And like, I'm 8. I don't exactly know what that means.
What an escort is, yeah.
Yeah, but I was like
somebody to help take you somewhere. Yeah.
No, literally, that's what I told her. I was like, oh no, don't worry, it's like an escort. So they like escort him from like the airport because I knew he was landing that day.
Yeah.
And it's he was landing that day, and I always knew it was so funny. The time that he would land, he'd always get home like 4 or 5 hours later. It definitely does take 4 or 5 hours to get from Heathrow to where I lived.
Right.
So I was like, no, you don't understand. And I was trying to tell my mom, they escort him from like the airport to here, and just that sort of stuff. I had to figure out what that meant, and I had to figure out what that meant for like me and my mom. And things just kind of went on. They were always like on and off, but still married until the age of like 14, where he just like completely cut us off entirely.
Wow. And you're an only child.
I'm an only child, yeah. So, the way I kind of describe my childhood, like I'm super blessed. Like I had the best childhood ever because I went to private school. So that's one thing he did still continue to pay for, even though he cut off my mom entirely. And cutting off my mom basically means cutting off me.
Right.
Because who else was there?
Right.
So by the age of 14, like we were completely cut off. So the way I describe my childhood was like I had like a Rolls Royce, but no money to like pay for petrol. Like I was going to this private school, this expensive, like elusive private school. I lived in a good area, even though my house was like, I put up on my stories sometimes when I visit back there. It's like literally the roof is like caving in. It's ridiculous.
So you have this like double life almost.
Yeah, literally.
At school you can play with the other wealthy kids, but at home they don't know the treachery that's going on.
The other stuff that's going on. And I think that's actually like I had the most incredible childhood because I went through all this trauma, all this pain. By the time I was like 14, I actually realized like either I step up and do something or like we are just fucked.
Yeah.
And by 14, I knew I had to be the man.
Right.
And just kind of seeing like when I was like 14, 15, 16, I just kind of saw my mom go into depression. Like sometimes she'll never admit it. She's a strong like Russian woman, but
that Russian culture. Yeah.
Yeah. But she'll never admit it. But there were like literally like 2 years or whatever where like she'd barely come out of her room, which makes sense considering I've just scratched the surface of what went on. Some of the stuff that went on, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And you would just hear her crying through the bedroom door.
Yeah. The funny thing is I wouldn't even hear her crying a lot of the time. It's just like when you look at someone and you can tell they've given up.
Their soul is sad.
There's no crying, there's no fighting back. It's just like they look like they're done. To me that's the scariest thing to see, when you see someone you care about so much, not even like, they're crying or they're upset, because that kind of shows that they're willing to work through it. It's like when it's apathy, when you see apathy in someone, to me, that's just like the scariest thing.
Which is awesome because now that you've built a 7-figure business and growing past that as you scale, you're actually able to take care of your mom and do some cool things for her, which you've shared on social media. What does that feel like? We'll get into the story, but real quick, I want to ask, what does it feel like to now be able to take care of her and spoil her in a lot of ways?
Yeah, look, to be honest, like, as you start to scale your business, as you start to make some money, you realize there's only so many watches you can buy. Like there's so many pina coladas you can drink. There's so many holidays you can go on. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you'll realize. I actually got this tattooed like here the other day. I have a thing I have tattooed is wherever you go, there you are. And you'll realize very, very quickly that the materialistic, the money stuff, it's cool to a point, but like to me, just like, taking care of my mom, taking her on holidays, being able to buy her stuff. Like I always used to, when I was younger, I would always look at, because I went to a wealthy school, I'd always look at my friends' parents and the dad especially, and I'd be like, that's so cool. Like I'd witness it as they'd go to dinner and, the check comes and the dad pays, which isn't like a crazy, ridiculous thing, but, just being, like, I always just had this idea in my mind, like, one day I'll be the man.
I'll be the provider, yeah.
I'll be the man. And to me, the man didn't mean that I would be draped in Gucci and I'd be like, like to me, the man just meant like I could be that rock solid person for everyone around me, and even just like my old girlfriend, like I had a girlfriend when I was like from like 14 to 16. Their family was amazing, especially considering everything that I had going on in mine. I could go to theirs and, they would take care of me. Like they pay for my dinners, they pay for my trips with them.
Wow.
But that gave me like this immense like shame. I'm like, like I'm with my girlfriend and she's, even though I was only like 15, 16, like she's paying for my lunch. Like that does not feel good. I don't know, for me, like that just didn't feel good.
Yeah.
So being able now with my, with my current girlfriend, it's just incredible. We just came from Bali, obviously in LA now to see some employees, back to London, so.
Very cool, man. And I know also around that age, 14, 15, 16, we talked about it off camera. I know it's a little bit private, but I know you mentioned that because of the stress at home, that you sort of went in a direction that wasn't so good, right? In school, a lot of kids were doing drugs and stuff like that. Did you witness a lot of that in private school? A lot of these wealthy kids, they themselves sort of just not realizing the privilege that they have and just sort of abusing it because everything's handed to them.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that, because maybe there's people out there, looking at you and maybe they're in a phase like that, at whatever age.
For sure. So when I was 14, that's when I first started like, I picked up a book, and from 14 to 17, I read a book a week. Every single Sunday I was, if anyone's in London or next time you're in London, I recommend you go there. So obviously I didn't have much spare income. So rather than going to like Waterstones or one of those new book places, I go to a place called Brixton Bookmongers. And you could get like a book that looked like it was pretty much new rather than 14 pounds for like 3 pounds or whatever. So I'd spend my weekends there, and 14, 15, 16, I was really building some good foundations. 14, I started my first business, which was actually flipping Instagram accounts. I was reading a book a week. And it's kind of crazy, like looking back now, because as I said, at 14, that's really when I realized like I got to be the man or we are so fucked, which turned out to be 100% accurate. So, I was building that foundation of 14, 15, 16. I was starting to make some money. Like
How are you flipping Instagram accounts for those curious, like what that means?
So like in 2012, 13, 14, like influencer marketing really started to shoot up.
Right.
So what I'd do is I'd buy an Instagram account. Well, first I would just develop organically Instagram accounts. And then, one day I got a message from someone saying, hey, can I buy your Instagram account? I'm like, what? Like, people do that?
Yeah.
And then I got into these Telegram accounts or these Telegram like channels or whatever. And people were just like buying, selling accounts. So, I'd buy a Porsche account, I'd flip it to a luxury niche account. That way I can start selling some like watch shout outs, or I can start selling shout outs for other products that were using influencer marketing. And then I could flip it and then sell it for more.
Which still exists now, but the market's super saturated.
Saturated, yeah. So, I had like these hustles up and coming, but, back to your question, like it was when my girlfriend, my ex-girlfriend, she actually went to America. She went back to America, so we had to split up. And when I came back, it's like, I have no girlfriend, I have no money, or very little money, from the side, the side hustles I had.
Right.
No girlfriend, no money, no home
stability.
I had like nothing. And for me, like I would say by the time I was 16, I knew I wasn't going to college, because it's like, it's fine and dandy, like thinking you're gonna go to college, but like realistically, who the hell was gonna pay for it?
Right.
So I came back to London and I had nothing. And the issue is with a lot of my friends in private school is in what happens when you have like free house on the weekend, spare income and spare time. not good stuff is gonna happen. Maybe some good stories will come out of it, but
if you can remember them, yeah.
if you can even remember them,
Yeah.
And it was like, and I grew up way too quick in every sense of everything. So when I was like 16, I started going out clubbing. I started going clubbing, and it still blows my mind. You can go to like any major city, like LA, London, New York, and you just see these kids, and they have their parents' card, and they're blowing like literally 10 grand a month on bottle service and stuff like that.
And the parents don't even care. Don't even notice.
Don't even notice. Don't even care. Like there's just too many things on their statements for them to even notice that that's an expense.
Yeah.
And
Love that.
I had no money or anything like that. But I had decent enough social skills, and I kind of got into that circle. I remember I'd be like 16, 17, going out 3 to 4 times a week to high-end London nightclubs, and then the after parties, you can imagine what's happening there. So, when I was like end of 16, 17, or end of 16, for 3-4 months, like I started to use quite a bit of drugs. Before, I remember on New Year's Day, it was New Year's Eve, I was out, obviously.
What year was this?
2016.
Gotcha.
So 2016 going to 2017.
Gotcha.
And 2016 and New Year's Eve, I was out, I got super wasted, came back home, and I remember I go downstairs. I say good morning to my mom. My mom's like, it's not morning, it's 4 p.m. And then like I turn to the sink, throw up, look back at her, and like, she's like, it was New Year's Eve last night, where were you? And like just this sadness goes over her face, or that like I'd just never seen before.
Wow.
And I could tell that the only thing that she had left, which was me, she was realizing that she was losing. So at that point, I'm like, I gotta stop this.
And that's the moment you decide to turn it all around and take business serious and take it to the next level.
At that point, I had one client with my agency, which was £300 a month. I thought I was so rich once I got that.
So when did you actually start your agency, and what was your agency at that time?
So, I went from flipping Instagram accounts in 2014, then 2015, I got into gym fitness. So I would hit up these people on Instagram that I saw had were like certified personal trainers. And I'm like, hey, can I PayPal you, and can I buy this scan of the, I forget what they're called, but basically the books you have to read in order to become like a level 2 or level 3 certified personal trainer. They'd send it to me, it'd be like 400 pages, and I just go through, highlight, print out, take notes, and then I'd start hustling. I'd go to my friends' parents, who were obviously super wealthy, and I'd start like, I don't know how I didn't get kicked out earlier, but I'd start telling them like, hey, can I personal train you? I'm like, how much? I'd be like, 30 pounds an hour.
Yeah, you just wing it.
Yeah. And that's what I did when I was 15. Then 16, I needed something that was a little more high leverage. So, made as much money as I could, and I bought my first camera. I'm like, I'm gonna get into like content creation, videography, stuff like that.
What type of camera was it? Do you remember?
It was the first one that I had was a 80D. It was new at the time, Canon 80D. I saved up all my money for that. So Canon 80D, and then the next upgrade I got was like the Sony A7, like double used.
Yeah.
Double pre-owned.
Double refurbished. Yeah.
So. And then kind of from there, like, I used to play football, or soccer for some of your years.
Yes. In the U.S., we call it soccer, but overseas football, yes.
Yeah, so I was playing football semi-pro, and I kept telling my coach, I'm like, look, your guys' social media is just terrible. And obviously I had a good background with social media, or namely just Instagram from 2014 when I was flipping accounts.
Right.
I'm like, I bet I can manage this like way better than you guys. So I had a meeting with the owner of the club, and he's like, yeah, sure. Like, why don't you manage it for us? And before I could even say yes, he's like, and how much? In my head, I was like, what do you mean? I was like, how much? I'm like, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
So then I came up with this proposal. I still have it on my computer and stuff like that.
Wow.
So it was £75 a week, the top package I pitched in. £75 a week, and for that I did 4 YouTube videos a month, 30 Facebook posts, and 30 Instagram posts.
For £75 a month, yeah.
£75 a week,
Oh,
so £300 a month.
Yeah.
But I curated all the content.
Yes.
I wasn't just distributing it, so I came every week on a Saturday to the pitch and would shoot content like edit it, and then throw it up.
All for 300 pounds a month. Wow.
Yeah. So that was my first client, and that was going into 2017 when I realized I needed to start getting my act together.
And they took the premier package.
Yeah, they took the 75 pounds a week. Yeah.
Wow. How did you feel when they first did it? How was your first time?
I was like because also it was something that was like recurring revenue that I guess I wasn't really used to.
Yeah.
Like I had my friends' parents that were doing personal training services with me, so I could kind of predict how many sessions they would want a month, but nothing where it was like 300-pound retainer.
Consistently.
Yeah.
Which is one of the powers of having a digital marketing agency, right?
Yeah.
Especially as you scaled, now you're able to count on that income.
Yeah.
You're helping clients get what they want, and you're also building a consistent income cash flow for you.
Cash flow is like king.
Absolutely.
You know, and a predictable cash flow, because the thing is when you don't know your cash flow, you're gonna make emotionally charged decisions, and when you do that, you're really not thinking long term, you're thinking short term, and then that's gonna come back and bite you in the ass later.
Absolutely, and especially if you're servicing your clients well, which you teach people how to do, you're able to consistently service them, which is gonna keep the income coming for you. So it's a pretty stable thing for all parties involved. Yeah, very powerful. So then what's your second client from that, or what's your next play? It's New Year's Day, your mom sees you, you're like, shit, man, I gotta change my life, I gotta take care of my mom. What happens next?
Yeah, so from there I started, going more heavy with the content creation stuff. I start hitting people up for freelance jobs, et cetera, and I get in contact with this company called Athlete, and that's actually the client, the person that I have a meeting with in like 2 hours.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Athlete.
Yeah.
So how are you getting in touch with them? You're just shooting DMs, cold DMs.
Emails.
Just
cold email.
So how are you finding the email? Just from their website, wherever you could?
Yeah. So I would just Google, and I was trying to target fitness niche. So I just look at gyms, stuff like that, and then just send them like a cold video outreach, right? So I get into contact with Athlete. I do one shoot for them. And after that, they're like, hey, can you manage our social media? So then I'm like, yeah, sure. I come into their office, like beautiful. I didn't really understand WeWork at that time. I come into their office. It's a WeWork space.
Yeah.
I come into the floor. There's like 100 employees. I'm like, I've like struck gold. Then I realized it was actually a WeWork. But nonetheless, they still had like a solid 12 desks.
Wow.
And, Sean was like, hey, can you do this for us? And once again, I gave him sort of like a tiered system.
More than 75 pounds a week, hopefully.
No, a little bit more. And that was 1,900 pounds.
Yeah.
So 1,900 pounds, I think, is like $2,500.
Right.
Put that forward. I was like, there's no way he's going to take this.
Right.
I'm sitting in class. I get the email. And I literally, I get up, because all my teachers knew I wasn't doing work. Straight up, all my teachers knew that I wasn't doing work, and I tried multiple times to drop out of high school or see what my options were. So all my teachers knew I wasn't doing work. So I remember I got the email, I closed my laptop, I left the classroom, I'm like, I'm never coming back here again.
When they said yes to the 1,900?
They said yes to the 1,900.
Wow, how old were you at that time, 16?
17, just turned 17.
Wow, so this isn't that long ago. No. So to think that you went from that to,
That was just under 2 years ago.
How would you have reacted if at that moment I said, hey man, in less than 2 years, you'll make your first million and beyond?
I'd probably think about my mom. I think about what I could buy my mom.
Yeah, it's incredible, man. Okay, so then you get the first client for 1,900 and then you're off to the races.
Yeah, and then from there I scaled really quick. Well, actually, I got that client, and then from there was a period of 45 days where I scaled from where I was $2,500. Yeah, $2,500. It's like $15,000. And I'll explain that process. One of my early business mentors, a guy called Bob, he is very well connected in Holland, and he took a liking to me because he just saw I was someone with potential that, unless someone like him stepped in, because I'd never had a father figure in my life, I was just gonna go batshit crazy. So he actually knew the owners of Bang & Olufsen in Holland, Bang & Olufsen Brussels. So he got me a video shoot with them.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was only 800 pounds or whatever, but they paid for travel as well.
So you were actually doing the videography with the cameras?
Yeah.
So initially you were doing the video work, and then also when you saw opportunity, taking advantage of the digital marketing agency stuff to service them. Gotcha.
So I was sitting in a window seat. I was looking out, and I'm like, this is the most incredible thing ever. Someone is literally paying me and then paying for my travel to go do work for them. I'm like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And I didn't mean specifically video or digital marketing, just having freedom.
Yeah, so important.
having freedom, and number two, something that's also been important for me, feeling like a respected business owner or like a respected asset to someone's business. And at that point, a lot of people, I guess, would have just assumed, I'm just a high school degenerate who decided, I'm going to drop out of high school and, become some big baller. It wasn't like that at all. Like, I looked out that window. I'm like, how can I make this happen? So what I said to myself was, in the next 2 months, if I can get my overhead plus rent, because obviously I wasn't paying rent at the time.
Right.
If I can get that in either lump sum, written contract, or deposit, or actually just like that full payment, then I'll drop out of high school. And I think it came out to 2,500 pounds a month I'd need times 4. So 10K I'd need total in either contract or deposit, et cetera, et cetera. And this is actually before athlete, before we signed that contract. So I looked out, I made that commitment, came back to London, signed athlete, and then signed 3 more clients like in a very short period.
Wow.
So it was only like 2.5 weeks. So within 2.5 weeks, I was at the local council trying to make a claim that, or trying to make a case for myself that, I should be able to drop out of school and be self-employed.
Wow. So let's go to those 4 clients, because I think a lot of people watching this will go, whoa, Iman, how did you just brush past that? Because that's like one of the biggest challenges. It's one thing to learn how to service clients, which you teach people how to do really well. I love your material. But then the other thing is getting clients in the first place, right? How do you differentiate yourself? How do you stick out when they don't know who you are? They have everybody in the world calling them to pitch them for business. And you're some high school dropout.
Yeah.
How did you win their trust? And how did you, if you could share maybe your tactics step by step for how you reached out to clients and how you would encourage other people who have their own digital marketing agency or thinking about starting one to reach out to their first 1 or 2 or 3 clients?
So funnily enough, the way I did it, and my first few clients was Athlete was my first one at 2,500. The second one was a company called Zebra Fuel, and that was like $3,500. I'm trying to convert from pounds.
Yeah.
And these are all like super cool companies. You can look all of them up. So I had Athlete, then Zebra Fuel, then Furo Systems, and then the one after was a personal trainer called James Taylor. So the way I actually got all of these clients was Instagram DM.
Really?
Instagram video outreach. Yeah, so I would, because I've always been pretty strong on video, so I'd reach out to them, do a quick 10-minute or 15-second, or 10, 15-second story, and I'd be like, hey, look, give me 5 seconds, I'm gonna show you 3 ways you're leaving 10K a month on the table. And then I'd just give them 3 things, and I'd be like, 3 things for each allotted video story. And then at the end, I'd be like, look, just meet me for coffee. If meet me for coffee, if we don't decide to move forward, you've literally just gone like a free 15, 20-minute consultation. And then I'd give them a text version as well, like the 3 ways I think they're leaving money on the table. Because that's something that really like hurts business owners, hearing that they're leaving money on the table. There's certain like buzzwords that I've found, or buzz phrases that I've found that really like resonate with a business owner. So leaving money on the table. One thing at the time, my retainers, I was still offering social media distribution and management, but most of it was the content. So we'd have a certain amount of deliverables every single month that we'd do, then we'd write the captions, distribute it, et cetera, et cetera. One thing.
So at this point, you were running their social medias. You weren't necessarily generating leads for them.
No.
You were just running their social media accounts.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the story of how that came about in just a little bit. But one thing that also just really hit home was I tell them, because most of these businesses were established businesses,
right?
Or at least these first few, except for James Taylor. And I'd be like, your social media isn't congruent to the size of your business. And they're like,
damn, they're like, that's right. My business is way bigger than this.
Because every business owner wants to feel as though, they've got their branding on point, or like people look at their business and they perceive it in the way they'd want to be perceived.
That they're maximizing their potential of their brand equity.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of how I got my first few clients, was literally cold email. I'd use something called the fake audit strategy. I was telling one of your partners earlier. The fake audit strategy, the thing is, for me to send out 100 cold video, like now I use Loom, but before I would just use ScreenFlow. But for me to send out 100 cold video outreach a day, it just takes too long, not possible. And to follow up with other people in the pipeline and whatnot takes too long.
Right.
But for me to have a template and then send out, something that's I guess it was a little bit of a cheat. What I'd do was I'd have this template and I'd go to their website, take a photo of their homepage, and then go on Canva, put a little play button and stick that on there, make it a little bit opaque, and then download it, and then put that into the template. And the template would basically say, I've made you a free audit on 3 ways you're leaving, depending on the niche, 10 to 100K a month on the table. I could send out 100 of those a day, no problem. And then from the 100 sent out, I'd get maybe 10%. 10 people hit me back and be like, hey, thank you for the email, but the video wouldn't play. And then that tells me those people are, they're ready to be followed up with. And then from those 10, I'd make like real 15, 20-minute audits of their business, or at least from what I can see.
So that was your intent. Your intent was to send them videos that don't work, just to see who was interested enough to even check it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Where did you get that strategy? Or you just thought of it on your own?
I was doing 100 cold outreaches a day. I was trying, and just
anything, you're just trying things,
It wasn't working. So I'm like, you know what? Like, what if, because the thing is, like, I could send an incredible, cold outreach. I could send an incredible audit to them, but the thing is, like, most of the time they just wouldn't get it. It would never,
get to the decision maker.
Exactly.
Yeah, it goes to spam, or it goes to their assistant, or just get lost in the mix of the inbox, or they don't take it serious.
So I'm like, this is super, super inefficient. So I'm like, what if they had a way of telling me that they were ready to move forward to the next step? And then that's when I realized, how about I just don't send them the actual video? What if I just take a photo of their home screen, add a little play button so it looks like it's a video, even though it's on email, they should know better.
Very smart.
Yeah, and then they'd click on it, and as I said, nothing would happen. And then they'd hit me up and be like, hey, thank you for your email, but your audit wouldn't play. And then I could be like, okay, I'm here with the right person, and I'll actually put the time in to create the audit.
Wow. 2 questions for you. What were you titling your subject lines of the emails, and is that important?
I don't remember exactly what I was telling them, but one thing that I would do is I would never capitalize the first letter.
Interesting.
Because the thing is, any sort of promotional or spammy material you get, they want it to be like,
flashy.
They want it to be flashy, so it's always going to be capitalized, or the first letter of every word is going to be capitalized. Right. So for me, I never had my headlines capitalized.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's just kind of a way to bypass them, for them to know, like,
this is different.
Yeah,
it's a subtle pattern interrupt, a reverse pattern interrupt, if you will. Yeah. Very interesting. My second question is, when you were doing all this, how old were you at the time? You're
17.
17. Now, did you have any limited beliefs at all? Any fears as you were doing this? Any anxieties? Because there might be people hearing this that go, okay, maybe it worked for Iman, right? Because Iman's got super confidence.
Yeah.
But you started out just as imperfect as anybody watching this, right? Who might be thinking like, how could I do that for my business? Whether they're in digital marketing, or they want to start their own agency, or maybe they're in some other business. Every business needs leads. Every business needs the ability to reach out to potential customers and service them or show them what they have to offer. At this time, did you have any limited beliefs when you were doing this? Were you like nervous and scared when you were hitting up these clients for $2,500 and $3,500 when you were just a 17-year-old kid who just sort of learned this stuff not too long ago? I mean, take me back to, what were the limitations or worries in your mind? Or maybe was your mom's motivation so hot that you didn't feel that? I mean, what was going on for you inside?
I mean, to be entirely honest, let's take this back even a little bit further. So when I was in the gym, it's funny, his name's Kieran. He actually works for me full time now, but I met this guy called Kieran, and Kieran was working in Times Magazine. They actually had a marketing subsidiary. So he got me a 1-day internship. I was thinking, well, if I'm about to start my agency and really take this seriously, I need to know what it looks like at an agency that's doing $500,000 a month in retainers.
Right.
I need to see what it's like at that scale. So I went there, had my 1-day internship, and just the inefficiencies that I saw there was, number 1, the expensive Nespresso machine. Number 2, the employees doing fuck all. Yeah. Number 3, the top floor office. Like all this, all of this stuff adds to your expenses, and what happens is that just reflects on the client retainer.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So I just realized there was just so much inefficiency. And first of all, I went there, and once again, like some of their clients were like LG, this other bicycle company, but these are multi-5-figure, some even 6-figure a month retainers. I went in there and I told them about an app at the time. It was called, I don't know if it's still called this, Apphi, like APPHI, and it allows you to schedule your Instagram posts, because you could use like Buffer and stuff like that, but it would schedule it, but then you'd get the notification, you still have to manually post it. So that app was the only one at the time that just like straight up posted it without you, and like their brains were just blown. Like they were like just super, super impressed. And I also got to take a look at some of their advertising campaigns, and all of it was optimized for brand awareness and reach. Which now, after spending, at the moment, me personally, I'm spending like 2-3K a day on ads, and with my clients spending a good amount as well. Like, I realized that that's just super inefficient, and that doesn't do anything.
It doesn't correlate to earning dollars.
Yeah.
If you have the brand equity out, if you're not making money.
So I mean,
ROIing,
I faced the same thing then that I face now. Which is, I get clients coming to me all the time, and they could very easily go to a full-scale agency. They can offer this solution, this solution, this solution, this solution. I had that same issue, and I have the same, I guess, way of handling that objection now that I do back then, which is, hey, look, if you come to me, I'm a boutique agency. We specialize in one thing. So while another person is going to sell you 10 different services and give you, they have 100% effort, they're splitting up that 100% into 10 different services, which most of these aren't actually even bringing you a return or any sort of tangible result. That's number one. Number two is the fact that you're going to pay these people $10,000 a month when you could pay me $2,500 a month. And what you need to understand is you're not paying, that extra $7,500 isn't for their expertise or their knowledge. You're just paying for their rent. You're paying for their Nespresso machine, for the fact that they have to payroll, whereas with me, I'm using exclusively contractors, or at least at the time.
My in-house team or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's kind of the same way of handling that objection back then than it is now.
Do you remember your first time landing a client where you couldn't believe that someone paid you that amount of money? You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had many moments at this stage, but do you remember that first moment that blew your mind when you saw what was possible with creating your own digital marketing agency?
Uh-huh. There's a couple where it's funny, it's not the most financially or the ones that are brought in the biggest retainers, but like Zebra Fuel was one. So Zebra Fuel is basically like, you guys have Uber Eats here, right?
Yes.
So it's like Uber Eats Postmates except for petrol. Mm-hmm. So they'll come to your car and fill up your petrol for you.
Oh wow!
So you don't have to go to.
That's awesome. Yeah, you don't got to go to the gas station. They just come to you. Yeah.
Super, super cool. So the reason for them, I guess, is just because they gave me so much shit for so long, and they really hated me.
Really?
Like they
were your clients?
No, they leading up to me signing.
Gotcha.
I got so, because there was 3 founders, Roman, Max, and Reda. Max, who was also Russian, he liked me. The other 2 hated me. And they had just got their Series B round of funding, so their second round of funding.
Yeah.
So, they're investors and stuff. They had agencies that they trusted with, and these are full suite agencies. And, here I am just like a one-man team, just me with my contractor.
A little high school dropout, just like, trust me, I can do this.
Yeah. So it's very tough to convince them. So someone like them, another one that was really cool for me is, I'm actually not wearing it right now. I'm getting a replacement, but Oura Ring is one of my current clients. And the cool thing was with them was I ordered the ring in February. And by the time August came around, I actually got introduced to them. So one of my clients, AJ Smart, which is a design agency out in Berlin, I helped them launch and start their info product. So we did $500,000 profit in 5 months.
Wow,
from
nice.
The funnel.
Congrats, man. Yeah.
From the funnel I built, plus the ads that we were running for them. So they were very happy. They introduced me to a guy called Kevin Rose. So he was a client of mine for a bit, and then he introduced me to Oura Ring. So Oura Ring, as I said, has been a longtime client of mine now. We run all of their Facebook ads. And I guess that one was really cool because like, I actually use the product.
Yeah.
I was a consumer of the product, and then now I get to represent them, and I believe very, very strongly in the company. And to be honest, I do with all of my clients, but I guess that was a really cool one where like, long before I had any contact with them, I was a user of their product, and then now I get to represent them, which is...
that's awesome. And that also helps, I'm sure, with servicing them because you're in the mind of the consumer because exactly. You are a consumer. Yeah. Well, talk to me a little bit about how to service clients efficiently, because I'm sure there was times where you maybe got contracts where you knew you could service them, but unexpected things came up, or maybe it required more ad spend or experimentation. And this speaks a little bit to the digital marketers out there, as you've kind of been known for quite a bit on social media. But talk to me a little bit about what does it take to service social media clients well to the point where they're happy to stay with you month after month after month after month?
Well, I mean, the main issue that I faced was I was actually, all of my retainers were based around content creation and distribution. And you know, my clients, as I said, they had their Series A, Series B round of funding, or they were just like well funded in general. And they were loving it until 3-4 months in, where they're like, hey, this is awesome, but what's the ROI? And I'd be like, I don't know. Like, how do I know?
Yeah.
You know, and obviously, you know, that's not actually what I'd say. I'd be like, oh, you know, we've brought in X amount of people, blah, blah, eyeballs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
You know, like, I would fight hard, especially because most of these companies were doing like red bus ads and like billboard ads. So I'd be like, look, you're spending like $5K a month on that billboard. Do you really, and you know, you have no data on that. Apart from what, you know, the BS agency is telling you, you know, what the reach is from the highway and stuff like that.
Which is totally manipulated just to sell it anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then you start seeing like, okay, shit, maybe, you know, managing their social medias isn't enough. You learn about Facebook ads and actually acquiring customers and leads, which all businesses will always want until the end of time. How did that pivot happen? And then how did you get into that and begin to master that?
This is really where it gets interesting, because I just had a bog standard agency, and then I realized very quickly, if I don't sell based on results and tangible results, because you know, my clients, they could hate me, they could wake up, you know, or at least, you know, where we are right now, they could wake up and they could hate me, or you know, they didn't get enough sleep, and they can fight me as much as they want. I go, okay, awesome, fuck you. Like, you spent 10K, we made you 40K, you're an info product business, so there is no operating cost, or there is no, you know, obviously they have their team and stuff like that, but you know, we made you 30K net. So if you want to leave, bye. You know, and I can do that now. And remember, I think I told you a little bit earlier, for me, one of the most important things was feeling like a respected business owner. Absolutely. Back when I had my agency, and even though I was doing, you know, at a point $15,000 a month, and then it would fluctuate around 10K a month, I didn't feel respected. You know, I didn't actually feel like a respected business owner. And at that point, I'm like, awesome, I need to do results-driven services. So I started learning Facebook ads. And you know, really one of the main issues I see out there is you get a lot of people who are saying stuff like, you know, go from like knowing nothing about email marketing, or know nothing about Facebook ads or Google ads or this thing, or you know, these different services. Go from nothing to within 30 days be have a high ticket agency based on that, and you're delivering the services. You know, start off at 0, and within day 30, you yourself are selling and delivering 3K a month Facebook ad retainers. That is like going to, and I learned all of this the hard way. Like that is like, you know, that's like telling, you know, Rafa Nadal would like laugh at you if there was a guy out there claiming that you can know nothing about tennis, never pick up a tennis racket, and within 30 days master tennis and then become a high ticket tennis coach. So that's what I learned the hard way. I learned the hard way that you can't learn Facebook in 30 days. You can't learn Facebook ads in 30 days. You can't learn email marketing in 30 days, SEO in 30 days. And for someone to tell you that is just, it's not true. So here's really where like my bread and butter came in. I had these clients, and you know, they might be paying me 2,500 pounds a month for all this content. And I learned very quickly that like, you know, I need to sell based on results. So I'm like, hey, let me also run your Facebook ads for you, and I'll only charge you 500 pounds a month because I'm just getting started.
500 pounds extra on top.
Extra on top.
Gotcha.
My first 4 or 5 clients, I lost every single one.
No way.
And the thing that stung the most was I was charging them only 500 pounds. Not only did they drop me for Facebook ads, they dropped me for everything else.
Wow.
So my agency just like got smashed to pieces. And here I am thinking like, oh, it's such an important thing for me to learn Facebook ads and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And this is towards the tail end of 2017. And
dude, you're going through a lot of stress for a 17-year-old, bro. Like, there's established business entrepreneurs in their 20s and 30s dealing with this. At 17, you're dealing with ups and downs and roller coasters. I love it. But continue.
You know, this is towards the tail end of 2017. So I see somewhere, I think it was on like Google Suggested or something, Expedia released their sales for that year, and Expedia's revenue for that year was like $11 billion. Wow. And if you know anything about Expedia, they're just a glorified affiliate site. So what Expedia does is Expedia connects the customer with the service or the holiday or the flight, et cetera, et cetera. And all they do is they take a small percentage. And the funny thing is, I read it in a book. There's a saying which is like the easiest way to become a millionaire is to be a billionaire and buy an airline. You know, because airlines make like no money. Like it's such a nightmare. So I realized Expedia is so smart. Expedia doesn't need to learn how to have like bomb ass in-flight food or an amazing boutique hotel. All Expedia has to do is connect the customer with what they want. And the funny thing is Expedia makes more, or at least in terms of profit, makes more money than all these people.
Than the end service providers.
Yeah.
Kind of like Uber.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing with like Uber and Airbnb. You know, I'm here in LA in an Airbnb right now. You know, Airbnb makes way, way more money, and Uber makes way more money than, I don't know, I guess.
Real estate companies are transportation companies, and they own no car and no real estate.
Exactly. So I'm like, this is it. You know, I need to do this. So what I realized was, why am I spending all of this time? And I have this saying that, you know, my customers and my students go crazy for, you know, you need to work on the business, not in it. You know, that's how you're really a business owner. You know, for me, like, the reason I've had so much success is I'm constantly building a system, testing how rigid it is. You know, I'll build an onboarding process, put a client through it, see, you know, tweak, do this, and then there we go. That's a system built. You know, then I'll look at another system, build that. Look at another system, build that. And what I'll do is I'll create all these systems, whereas most agency owners and most entrepreneurs in general, they're just running around like headless chickens, repeating the same task again and again and again and again. So I realized I am the headless chicken. You know, I'm delivering these services for my clients. I'm doing it myself. I'm not a business owner. I'm not an agency owner. I'm just a glorified contractor. And that's why I'm like, if I'm just one person, I'm just a glorified contractor.
That's right.
And that's why they're not treating me like a business owner. You know, I could tell they didn't have the respect for me like they do now. And for me, that really, like, that hurt.
Yeah, of course.
So from there, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna apply the Expedia business model. So what I did was I found a contractor, and at the time I was paying him $600 per month per client. And then I was selling these services on for, at first, $2,000 a month, and then $3,000 a month, and then $5,000 a month, and then I had my first 10K client.
And these are monthly reoccurring retainers?
Monthly reoccurring.
Paying you every month, 10,000 every month, 10,000 every month, yes.
Yeah, and I realized it. And the best part was, when I was trying to learn Facebook ads, I bought every single Facebook ad course. I worked with every single Facebook ad coach, you know, because I still had my business my agency doing 10K a month, so I could afford to pump some money into self-education.
How important did you find that it was to invest into self-education?
It is so important, except for the Facebook ad stuff. None of that stuff worked.
Really?
I bought all the courses, all the coaches, and none of it worked, because once again, you can, like, you know, it's like riding a bike. You can, like, you know, you can either, like, you know, read all these tutorials on how to ride a bike and watch a video on how to ride a bike, but the best way to learn how to ride a bike is just ride the damn bike.
Right.
You know, and it was the exact same thing with Facebook ads. And the funniest thing is I used my contractor, and as I said, I was paying him $600 per month per client. And I was charging $2,500, $3,500, $5K. I was using him to deliver the services for me, but I was also using him to coach me. So, you know, he actually works for me full time now. His name's Danny.
Awesome.
But I was like, Danny, you know, why did you choose the conversion objective rather than brand awareness or reach? Or, you know, he'd be doing a retargeting campaign, and I'd be like, Danny, you know, why are we not running, you know, this is to retarget people to buy. You know, why are we not running a purchase objective? Why are we running brand awareness and reach? And he'd be like, you know, in his Colombian accent, you know, he'd be like, oh, it's because, you know, these people are already qualified. You know, we don't need to look for the people who are most likely to buy. We just need to get it to as many of this retargeting audience as possible. I wouldn't have learned that through a Facebook ads course. Right, yeah. You know, so I learned that, you know, that was actually the best way for me to get practice.
Mm-hmm. You learn the nuances by being in it.
Yeah, by actually being in it, or being able to shadow someone who knew what they were doing.
And be able to pick their mind in real time. Yeah.
So that's really when everything changed for me. And my agency, you know, it was always, you know, it would do 10K and then it would go down a little and then up a little. So it was averaging 10K, and that's really where it just shot up. You know, that's where, number one, getting that contractor and bringing on board as a team member. Now, I had to teach him copywriting because he was terrible at copywriting.
Right, especially from Colombia, probably a little bit of language difference. Yeah.
So I had to teach him copywriting. That took a little bit of time. But, you know, from there, number one, having him, and number two, building out the systems. Like, just, you know, an example that I can give you is most people, when they are trying to set up a meeting, whether that be a Zoom meeting, a Skype call, or an in-person meeting, they'll go back and forth. They'll be like, hey, you know, Chris, you know, what time works for you? And then Chris will be like, oh, I can do this time. You know, I can do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. And then, you know, that person will have to come back. And then you'll email back like, oh, okay, awesome. Let's do Tuesday, 4 p.m. You know, what's your Skype ID, or like, what, what's your address? I'll come meet you, blah, blah. just little things like that. That's what I'm saying. Most agency owners and most business owners in general are just running around like headless chickens.
Lots of inefficiencies, yeah.
That is a task you're repeating again and again and again. So I'm like, okay, why don't I just send people my Calendly? Why don't I just use a QD scheduling? Why don't I just send people my QD scheduling? But the issue with that is they could see what times I was available. And at the end of the day, they're the client, so you still have to be a bit respectful. So whenever I message a client or a potential client, I'm like, hey, could you let me know some times that work for you? Or conversely, you can just pick a time from my scheduler and you'll get a Google Cal/iCal invite. So basically,
beautiful. Yeah, both. The best of both worlds.
Yeah, so that way you're still respectful because you're trying to get their business.
Right.
You know, so what time works for you, or just use the thing that works the best and you'll get a Cal invite, you know. It's quite clear what the best option is.
Makes sense.
But the issue with that is then I still need to send them I need to create a Zoom meeting, or I need to send them my Skype ID. So I'm like, oh, this is stupid. So then I found a way to get a universal Zoom link and then just put it in the confirmation email from Acuity Scheduling. So that way I can send a cold video outreach, and I use Loom for that, best tool ever. So I use Loom. It's a really dope Chrome extension.
Right.
I can send out a 15 to 20 minute audit. And then from there, they can actually book in a time. And when they book in the time, they can select it. They get the iCal or Google Cal invite. And then also when they get the confirmation, they get sent the unique Zoom meeting link. So then that way, I don't need to tell them my personal phone number. None of my clients know my personal phone number. None of my clients text me. None of my clients email me. We all use Slack. And then that way, like, it just
keeps things separated and organized.
Keeps things efficient, right?
Yeah. I love that. Now, how about in terms of actually finding somebody to help you service the clients, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned that you found the guy in Colombia. How important is it to put people in place when you have efficiencies with skill sets when it comes to scaling your business, right? Because we know a lot of people, you know, me and you are in the digital marketing space. You know, people who struggle when they're trying to make their own funnel and do their own copy and run their own ads, and you know, and they're trying and trying and trying, but get nowhere, as opposed to somebody else who puts the right people in place. How important do you find it is? I have a two-part question. How important do you find it is to put the right people in place? And secondly, where do you recommend people go look to find the right people to put them in place? Because it's one thing to build a business, it's another thing to have the right people to scale it.
So when it comes to agency services, you don't need to just sell Facebook ads. Like, for example, my girlfriend, her LinkedIn agency, she does done-for-you LinkedIn services where it's all organic, and she'll just try to bring leads to agency owners, right? But she doesn't have to do any of the service delivery herself. She just has to be the person that kind of looks over everything and trains the team, et cetera, et cetera. So in terms of finding a high-quality contractor or team member, the best place to look is actually Facebook groups. Because the thing is, like,
Great idea, yeah.
You know, the thing is, you want someone who is, like, the issue with Upwork or Fiverr is people are usually on there. They have this sort of mindset where, like, you know, they're not doing it for passion or joy. They're just there to make some money.
Yeah, they're not one of the passionate few.
They're definitely not, you know, and they've just got their hourly rate, and that's all they give a shit about is their hourly rate or their monthly rate or whatever.
Yeah, getting the job done, not getting it done right.
Mm-hmm. Whereas that's not what I want, you know, because we service some pretty big clients. That's not what I want for my team. So Danny, I actually found him in a Facebook ads group, because the thing is, if someone is actively in a, you know, media buyer secrets Facebook group, or they're in a
mastermind group or some sort of, where they're taking initiative to ongoingly learn or be a part of a community. Yeah,
and one thing I noticed about him was he just kept asking questions, and he kept replying to people's questions. I looked on his profile, and it's not, I looked at it, and, you know, it's not like he was like a coach and he had a case study funnel or something like that. Yeah. Like, he was just a regular dude. So I'm like, why is this regular dude just spending all his time on these Facebook forums, these Facebook groups, and answering people's questions and asking questions and stuff like that? So this guy was like, I noticed, was dead passionate, and that's the most important thing.
Amen.
You know, when you find someone who is a team member, you know, nowadays I can trust Danny. Earlier or yesterday, he had a call with a company called Matcha.com that we're just about to sign, or pretty much did sign. You know, he's passionate, and like, before I even sign the client, I'm like, hey, Danny, what do you think about this? And he'll hop on the call with the client, you know, and he'll like vet them and open up their pixel and check their pixel data.
Take initiative on it, yeah.
You know, and you know, that's the real difference between an employee or a contractor or a team member, you know, someone who will actually take initiative compared to someone who
waits to be told what to do,
or is just there for the money.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Now, looking forward, what are some of the challenges that you've encountered, and how have you overcome them? Because a lot of people see you as, you know, recently becoming a millionaire, like oh man, this wonder kid, this protege of online marketing, he did it so rapidly. Obviously, you teach people through your course, and you've been helping hundreds of students all over the world build their own. But what are some vulnerabilities or what are some challenges that you're currently dealing with, whether it be personally or in your business, and how are you overcoming them? And the reason I ask is because there's probably people watching this that might have their own struggles or challenges and go, is Iman even human? Or is this guy just a whiz kid with this digital marketing space? So what are some current challenges you're dealing with, and how have you got through them, and what advice would you give to others who were having their own challenges in their business?
Yeah, great question. So, I say this all the time. You do things out of inspiration or desperation. For me, kind of like growing my agency was pretty easy. Like I got, and it's funny, everything that I knew was going to happen, happened. The day I turned 18, so my stepdad in the divorce case would no longer have to account for me. The day I turned 18, my stepdad filed for divorce, because he didn't get his benefits out of us anymore.
Yeah.
And there we go. And his number one request was, keep in mind, they were legally married for, I think, 14 years. Number one request is you have 7 days to leave my house.
Wow.
And if I was still in school, we'd be homeless. I don't have any family. I don't have anyone to rely on.
And your mom isn't in a financial situation at all where she can, take care of you guys.
But, because I built my business and whatnot, fine, okay, cool. Divorces are expensive. It's cost me a lot of money.
Yeah.
But okay, cool. We can get the best lawyer in town, pay for it. Costs a couple $100,000. It's pretty ridiculous. But, at least I can do that.
What does it feel like as a teenager to be able to pay 6 figures for your mom's legal fees? I mean, that's something that a lot of people, obviously it's an unfortunate situation, but what does it feel like for you to be, to have put in so much work and be able to do things like that? To the audience who, might be dreaming of doing something like that at whatever stage of life, what does it feel like to be on the other end of that ability to provide?
It's pretty crazy. My stepdad, so obviously he thought he was gonna because he could kind of start to tell I was making money, but I guess he didn't know how much. Yeah. So he probably just thought he'd squash us or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we started fighting him, and then he started throwing a bunch of slanderous claims, saying my mom, just crazy shit, like my mom was like a prostitute, and like my mom's doing this, and I'm like a drug dealer, and just crazy stuff. And like we keep fighting him, and I assume he just realized
this kid's got the funds for the lawyers.
They're strong enough now.
Yeah.
And
wow. That's incredible, man.
I guess that's kind of the cool thing, when you step into court and then you see this guy that's put your mom through so much, and you can, as I said, I always just wanted to be the man, and the man didn't mean, to me, the man wasn't, someone who's just ridiculously wealthy or, popping bottles or this thing or that thing or a vanity thing. For me, the man was you can be that rock for anyone around you, whether that be your girlfriend, whether that be your mom, whether that be your friends. If they're going through a tough time, you can take care of them, no problem. But that's kind of the issue is, before, inspiration or desperation. So desperation, my mom, getting to 10, 15K a month, no problem. Once you're at 10, 15K a month, I could take care of my mom. I could pay for an apartment for her if she wanted,
right.
Or if she needed. And at that point, you kind of start to ask yourself, why am I actually doing this? And then I started scaling to 50, 60, 70K a month. And I was stuck at around 50 to 80K a month for a lot of last year, from February to around September of last year. And I noticed my focus was going down and stuff like that because I didn't really have a reason to move forward.
Very interesting. I was just going to ask you about that. How much of your motivation as you grew your business came down to a why versus came down to just ego, or desire? Not ego in the negative sense, but just how much of it was I want to make more money versus no, I have to for my mom.
Yeah.
Do you think you would have been able, let me ask you this, do you think you would have been able to go as fast as you did to grow your business as fast as you had you not had the pain of your mom's situation, or no?
No, definitely not.
Really?
Yeah.
So it wasn't a matter of ability, it was a matter of motivation.
Definitely, 100%.
Very interesting point for the audience at home watching this. Now, what lesson could you take or give to people, whether it be either something from your life or for the students that you have all around the world who've learned from your various programs? What have you found that the most successful students or entrepreneurs do well? Is it cultivate the right why, motivation? I mean, what have you seen work for you and others?
First of all, just cultivate the right why. And then to be honest, a lot of it is just the way you structure your day. I even teach people in my program, I teach people how to just set up newsfeed eradicator, YouTube blocker. Most people are just, one of the books I read early on was Shallows, What the Internet's Doing to Your Brain, when I was 16. That really scared me. So most people, you need to understand, most people, they wake up at different times every single day. They go to the gym kind of whenever in the day.
Right.
Most people don't even plan their day.
Right. Yeah.
And most people, the first thing they do when they wake up is check their phone. So a lot of stuff I have to teach people is, most of it isn't even about like what's the best outreach method or how smooth are you at objection handling, or how to build like a small niche authority within your within
Category or whatever.
Yeah. A lot of it is just like set up YouTube blocker, set up Facebook feed eradicator. Wake up at the same time every day. I'll like show people how to actually wake up at the same time every day. The best way to wake up at like 6:30. The right alarm to use. Using a ring light or like a light that 30 minutes before wake up starts to shine and emulates the same color temperature as the sun. Like honestly, like if you can just, in my opinion, if you can just stop like over drinking, over smoking pot, start waking up at the same time every day, not fuck around on social media too much, and just do even like an hour to 2 hours of work a day, you're pretty much like 80% of the way there to making 6 figures a year.
I love that. And it speaks true to 2 points. One is Steve Jobs. They interviewed him and they said, Steve, of all the success you've built with Apple, this colossal multi-billion-dollar company, what would you say, you attribute most of your success to? And he actually said, I attribute most of it to what I don't do, not what I do. So my brilliance isn't in what I've decided to do or follow through or discipline or any of that, because my brilliance is in the ability to say no. Someone comes in for a meeting, no. When a potential customer, no. We have a couple core products. We have an iPhone, an iPad, a MacBook, this. And of course, a multi-billion-dollar company, you can imagine, what about a watch? What about this? What about that at that particular time in their business growth? And he said, no, that the number one thing an entrepreneur can do is focus on what matters and say no, and it's about saying no. So that's the first point that I think the audience could really learn from you. And then the second point is a quote that I love, and you'll probably love this if you don't know it already. It's that most people don't have business problems. They have personal problems that reflect in business.
Manifest in their business.
Yeah, so that speaks true to that point. Now, let me ask you this. What motivates you at the 50 to 80K level? Because you said you sort of got stuck there. So what was it that pushed you over the edge? Because, at a certain point, 50 to 80K, you're already very comfortable. You can eat whatever, drive whatever, help your mom, take care of things. So the immediate sort of luxuries or indulgences are not so much, the motivation anymore. What was it that got you over that hump from 50 to 80K a month and to soar beyond to now, 6 figures a month?
Yeah, so I mean, for me to get from, 60K a month or whatever to where I am right now at like roughly 200K a month profit, it was just like, I was stuck there for so long because you got to think about it. I was an 18-year-old, so all of my needs were met. Financially, I had everything that I needed. And then I also had all of the validation that I needed, which is very, very bad. That's very scary. Because
especially with social media.
Yeah, no, and that's, I did a post about this the other day. I basically said, entrepreneurship, especially entrepreneurship combined with social media, is very, very scary, because a lot of time you can get everything, all of the effects of actually doing the work by just posting about the work. You can get all the validation you need just by posting about you hustling and this and that, rather than actually doing the work. Before you have to actually do the work, get the result, and then you get the validation.
Right.
Nowadays, you can just post about doing the work, right, and then you get the validation. And that's very, 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 very scary. And that's why I tell, all of my students and stuff like that, I'm like, shield yourself from social media as much as you can. It's in the same way, a drug dealer doesn't actually use his own product.
Right.
That's kind of like the same thing with me with social media. I harshly limit my exposure to social media, because although technically what I do is I buy media, buy ads for my clients.
You're in the social media business, yeah.
Even though I'm in the social media business, and I buy media, I buy ad space and placements for both myself and my clients, I'd never use it myself. When you go on my Facebook, as I said, nothing comes up on my newsfeed. Right. When I go to YouTube, I don't have any recommendations. I don't have comments turned on. I have 2 phones. My actual real phone is only turned on 8 hours a day. For 16 hours a day, you can't reach me. It's impossible. I have another phone, all it's got on there is Uber, Spotify, Audible, and Aura. So, that, as you said, that's kind of like the main issue with most people is like, it's not actual business problems they're having, it's personal problems that are manifesting in their business.
Very true. And you also have a mentor, which is Sam Ovens, right? Not only do you mentor people, but you also have a mentor. I also have my mentors. What are some things you've learned from Sam that you've implemented? Because obviously, Sam is a world-class marketer, entrepreneur, and consultant. But I know as part of his mastermind, you've learned a lot of cool things relating to what you just shared, right? Can you share some other insight to the audience that maybe wants to take their business or their life or their discipline to the next level, whether it be apps that work or just little, minute efficiencies that you've implemented that you've noticed, like a radical improvement in your business with?
Yeah, so I was doing roughly 100K a month, and then I came into contact with Sam stuff, and that was actually kind of helped me push the marker a little. Because one thing that I love about Sam, and to be honest, like I kind of know what I need to do these days, so I don't really have any mentors or stuff like that.
Right. Self-aware at this stage.
Because at a certain point, you just you're your worst enemy.
Right.
You know what you need to do, you just got to do it. But I came into contact with his stuff when I was doing roughly 100K a month, and what I loved about his stuff was most of the stuff he preaches in terms of like the actual marketing side and sales, it's not that revolutionary. It's just the fact that everything that he focused on outside of business, the efficiency, the focus, and stuff. And that's personally what I loved about his stuff. And that was kind of something that I'd cultivated and gotten me to that 100K a month mark. Is just the fact that like, just having that streamlined focus and just like waking up every day and having the same morning routine, that boot up routine. And a lot of people really struggle to wake up in the morning. There's a really good app called Alarmy. So definitely give it a go. You can't turn off the alarm until, for me, I have it set that I have to walk into my kitchen, scan the barcode of my, I think it's like an espresso capsule or whatever that I keep in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the alarm won't turn off.
No matter what.
Can't turn it off.
Yeah.
So I use that.
I love that. Yeah, that's so cool.
On my computer, most computers you get, like they're not actually usable,
Right.
because there's just so much distraction everywhere.
Right,
So,
yeah.
For like, a year now, I've been using Facebook feed eradicator. So nothing comes up on my feed. I've been using YouTube. It's called like YouTube VK blocker or something like that. So nothing comes up on YouTube, no comments, no suggested, no sidebar, nothing. So I can use YouTube, like I can go on YouTube and not end up in a wormhole and 3 hours later be like, how the hell did this happen?
Right, you can be intentional with it, yeah.
There's another one called Focus. So I set focus when I know I don't need to do anything that involves, Facebook or talking to team or whatever. And that just blocks email, it blocks Spotify, it blocks a lot of websites. And once again, there's no way to turn that off. So you just have to like shield yourself from all of the people trying to grab your attention, because at the end of the day, like, attention is scarce these days because there's so many people like vying for it and just trying to get your attention that you have to, whatever products you're using and in your path to building a successful business, you're gonna have to protect yourself because there's gonna be a lot of people trying to scream at you for your attention.
I love that. Now let me ask you this. What are some things that you noticed maybe on the way up that you would have done differently? So knowing what you know now, obviously you have tons of experience, you've scaled to in the millions now in annual revenue. But on your way up, what are some things you would have done differently? Maybe some inefficiencies. Would you say it's just that, sort of the inefficiencies you would have made more efficient in your processes, your systems, hiring the right team? If you could go back, a year, for example, what would you have done differently knowing what you know now when it comes to building your business?
Probably just focus and just identifying the fact that when I'm having, for example, as I said, I was stuck at like 50 to 80K for like a solid 6-7 months. And that's just because those were personal issues manifesting my business. It was nothing crazy. I wasn't going out getting super wasted. It's just stuff like, I was waking up at 5:30, 70% of the time, not 100%, 70% of the time.
Yeah.
How you do one thing is how you do everything. Right. And those days when I didn't wake up, that's when my day was ruined because it started off on the wrong foot. Number one, that, and number two, like, the same why that I could use to get to 10, 15K a month, I couldn't use to scale past, 50 to 80K a month.
Yeah, that's true. You need a new why, a new motivation. Yeah.
From there, it had to go from desperation to inspiration. So for me, my why now is to reform the education system, through the best quality programs, online programs in the world. Like, it's really cool what's happening with the education system, because the education system is one of the most centralized industries in the world.
Yeah.
So if you go look at someone like PayPal, they took something that was so centralized, so old, so like sluggish, which was banking, and they completely revolutionized it. They took it online. If you go look at the education system, it's very, very centralized. There's only a certain amount of people, institutions, universities, colleges that, can actually teach. The cool thing now is with internet, someone like you can show people how to have their own successful podcast and, have their own successful business. Someone like me, I can show people how to have their own successful agency from real world experience that's up to date rather than stuff that was written 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Out of a textbook taught by somebody who never ran a business in a school or something. Yeah.
So I'm super excited for, the fact that the education industry is now becoming very decentralized. Even if someone just puts up a YouTube video sharing their experience of what they learned, that is, furthering the decentralization of the education system. That means that it isn't just your Harvards or your Cambridges that can teach people. It's just the regular person that has actually done it and then can then go ahead and teach other people how to do it. But the only kind of scary thing about that is, I guess it's kind of like the decentralization of the banking system. If we go look at like cryptocurrency, it's awesome because now it's becoming decentralized from the government, but there's a lot of dangers that come with that in the fact that there isn't as much vetting. Nowadays, with the decentralization of the education system, let's be honest, any dumbass can put out a YouTube video
or
and put out a course. And I guess that, to me, that's kind of like the only scary thing that I'm seeing is, that. But that's my long-term vision, is just to reform the education system. The way to do that for me is e-learning. So as I said, I actually have that meeting at 9 o'clock with my old client athlete. They do a lot of software development. We're looking at building a custom portal that's going to cost me like $500,000. But who cares? Like, my customers are going to be able to log into this custom portal. And as I said, one of my clients is Oura Ring. So, I'm going to have a conversation with the CEO, Harpreet. I want to have, my custom portal API integrate to Oura Ring. So now someone can wear their Oura Ring, have real-time stats on my custom portal. Not only can they consume all that content and all that education material, but they can see how their sleep is affecting the actual business.
Wow.
That can plug into, I wanted to plug into QuickBooks, so now they can actually see their accounting and how that's affecting their business education. I want to take education and not make it about just the tactics or the tricks anymore. The actual, because here's the thing, I'm sure you understand this. One person will purchase a course and get 0 results. The other person will purchase a course and become a millionaire. What's the difference between them? It's probably their systems, their structures, their routine, their mindset, the limiting beliefs they have, and probably the fact that they actually used it and implemented it and took action. You know what I mean? And just having, at this point over 1,500 students, I've realized that, someone will come into my program, get no results, and the other person will come into my program and be making 10K a month within 3 weeks. Or even I've had it as little as a week before.
Wow.
And it just kind of made me wonder, and it really made me rethink things. So that's what I want to do: reform the education system by just having the best e-learning platform on earth.
I love that, man. Well, you're well on your way to doing just that. Now, talk to me about something that we talked about in private, and that was your motivation with your stepfather, who you actually sent an awesome message to after struggling and not having much and quote unquote making it, becoming a 7-figure earner in your teens. Can you talk a little bit about what that felt like? We're going to put it up on the screen here so people can actually check it out. But can you talk about what that moment meant to you, what it felt like? Although people listening to this might think it's a bit spiteful, it actually was a lot of motivation for you. So we're sharing it with the audience so you guys can see it. But can you talk a little bit about what was behind, the energy behind that text message and what it meant to you to be able to do something like that?
Yeah, so to be honest, I'm not a very spiteful or rah-rah person. I hold no anger towards anyone that's ever done me wrong. Lord knows, I've done plenty of people wrong. I'm sure everyone has.
Right.
But, at the end of the day, for me, that was just a cool moment, being able to send that. As I said, I'm not a very spiteful person, but just being able to send that, and it's just kind of for me, it was just I think in this world, you can get pretty far by doing some pretty shitty stuff. But at the end of the day, that karma always comes back to you. And for me, that was that moment where that came back to him. And, just being able to move into my beautiful apartment in London and send that to him, it wasn't even a spiteful thing. It wasn't something where I held a lot of anger. It was just this is what happens. It's come back around now.
Very cool. Now, before we wrap up and ask some mindset questions, I want to ask for people out there, what would be Iman Gadzhi's top 3 tips to have a powerful Facebook campaign, right? So say someone wants to get customers into their business, generate leads, and let's say they know nothing or barely know a little bit. After all this experience working with customers at all levels, what would your top 3 tips be to be an efficient Facebook marketer to generate leads and customers for your business?
Top 3 tips. Number 1, if you're actually looking to sign on a client, you want to look for those easy clients. So easy clients, or for example, this company that we just signed, Matcha.com, they had a podcast with Tim Ferriss, and then one with Kevin Rose, and then one with Joe Rogan. And they're about to have 3 more podcasts featured. What that means for us is we can take the last 6 months of their pixel data. So the pixel is a thing that, you ever notice you'll go onto someone's website and then you see them like 2 minutes later on your Facebook, an ad being served to you. If you can take on a client that has some sort of pixel data, most of the time, if they haven't worked with an agency, I can backdate them 6 months and take 6 months of website traffic and take 6 months of initiate checkout or add payment info. And I can retarget those people and get really easy, just some really easy sales. Retargeting isn't too hard to do. I can just get some really easy sales, and that instills a lot of confidence in them from month 1 that, we made the right decision, because I say this all the time, every recall is a reframe. So,
I like that.
That's also why I tell all of my students, never, ever, ever manually invoice. All of my clients, sure, I have to pay Stripe 2%, merchant fee or whatever, but all of my clients are auto bill and auto invoice, and their card has to be on file for that, because every recall is a reframe. At the end of the month, I don't want them, reframing me and going, oh, is this worth it? Is this not worth it? So that's why, I don't care about the 2%. I want them auto-billed.
Yeah, but I care about the long-term value of that customer. Yeah.
Exactly. But back to your question is, number 1, try to find clients with some good pixel data and good history.
What's the Facebook pixel for those who might not know?
So the pixel is, you can get something called a Facebook pixel helper, and it'll show up in the top right as it's a Chrome extension. Basically, a pixel is just a line of code. It's basically a cookie that tracks what a person does on the website. For me, with a client like Matcha or a client like Aura or just some of my other info product clients, we can come in and we can take past pixel data and we can then retarget those people. And that's a really easy way just to get results from like day 1. And the same thing can apply if they have a good Facebook or Instagram or even YouTube. Is any sort of social, like for example, right now I could run an ad for you. I could run an ad for you, and we could take your entire Instagram audience, build an audience of that, build a 30-day audience of people who have visited or people who have engaged with your Instagram profile. And I said, that's just leads that are a lot warmer, because converting cold can be quite tricky.
Right.
Yeah, so that's number 1. Number 2 is study copywriting. The most important thing, like by far, is actually the creative. But study copywriting, and for me, my niche is info product and e-commerce. So most of our clients are 70% are info product clients. And long form copy works beautifully. So yeah, just study copywriting, because honestly, like a lot of time you can't really fuck up the audience, or you can fuck that up, but you can notice quite quickly that, that vertical isn't working or whatever, and you can pivot. Most of the time it's actually just the copywriting and the creative. Those are the 2 most important things. And if you're running ads for a client, just try your best to avoid stock photo images.
Right.
Especially a lot of my e-com clients, they want photos that are very like professional, well done. But the thing is, when people scroll through their Facebook, if they think it's an ad, like you're done.
Yeah, it looks generic. Yeah.
So I guess number 1 is finding a client with good pixel data. Number 2 is just become an expert at copywriting, because that's actually the most important thing.
Which is the ability to write the words that sell on the actual ads.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And then number 3 is, that's tough. As I said, it's kind of like based on a niche by niche basis. Number 3 is actually something that's more agency, but I'll kind of plug in here when selling Facebook ad clients. On my onboarding process, I have this thing called the 90-day emotional journey, and it kind of looks like this.
Yeah.
So I say day 1, you're gonna, and I have these emojis to represent it. I go, day 1, you're gonna be happy, because day 1 to day 20, it's kickoff. You're starting to see your ads. Your mom's hitting you up saying, "Hey, son, like I saw your ad, whatever." But then from there it goes down, and that day 20 to day 20 to day 40 is when they start to reframe and they start to second guess. Because at the end of the day, you're still trying to figure out, what audiences work best for them, what sort of tone of voice works best for them, et cetera, et cetera. Now, most people, and what I did was I did a rolling month by month contract. These days, it's a 3-month minimum, and then from there, it's rolling month by month. Because 3 months, make sure that, as I said, it's funny, it's usually around that day 30 where they're super emotionally charged. because that first excitement period is done.
Waned,
And now they're like, oh, where are the results? It's like working with a personal trainer. You can't get results after 30 days. You have to look at it from maybe a 3-month or a 6-month scope.
Right.
So I like to do 3-month minimum, and that just ensures that you aren't. Back in the day with my old clients, like I was stacking the odds against me because I'd be doing month by month, but it's always that day 20 to 30 where they're most on edge, and they're mainly making emotionally charged decisions.
Right.
And that's not what you want.
Especially if you're not able to give them context up front to expect that.
Yeah, exactly. So
you're not setting the expectation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that, it's not exactly running killer campaigns, because as I said, it's kind of based on a niche by niche basis. But just making sure that you do a 3-month minimum for all of your agency clients just allows you that breathing room to relax and just, not rush things.
Very powerful. Okay. Now, what about if I had this idea, because I know there's a lot of digital marketers out there, people who are trying to build their social media marketing agency, or for any business, but let's say it's social media marketing, and I'm going to give you 5 niches real quick off top. And if you could give me your first brainstorm of how you would get clients in that niche. Make sense? So I'm going to kind of test your improv ability here. You ready?
Okay.
Okay, so number 1, the automobile industry. What would you do to find clients?
Automobile industry, that's a good one. That's actually one that I've had no experience with whatsoever. Yeah. To be honest, it's mainly the same with pretty much any niche you go in. Cold campaign, if it's automobile, it's going to be local within. Now, one thing that I would say about automobile is it could actually be nationwide compared to a gym. You could probably only do a 3-mile radius, because no one's really going to travel more than 3 miles, or at least I guess in London.
Right,
Here, I guess people travel longer. But at least in London, no one's going to travel more than 3 miles to go to their gym. Whereas
point.
automobile, because it's a larger investment, people are willing to drive nationwide, in order to get a better deal or whatever.
Get it transferred or whatever. Yeah.
So one of the things I really tell my students is you need to do your niche research. So you need to understand that if you're in the real estate niche, you need to understand that seller leads are better than buyer leads, because usually seller leads are also going to be buyers. Someone that's selling their house, the real estate agent can usually, when they're selling a house, they'll usually buy another one. So they get double commission. So as I said, I know a bit about real estate, gyms, we do info product and e-commerce. But, one thing just off the top of my head that I would do differently for an automotive niche compared to a gym or a restaurant is you can go ahead and take that demographic targeting, and rather than doing 3 miles or 10 miles, you can actually open that up to maybe 100 miles, simply because it's a larger purchase and a larger investment, people are willing to travel and drive further.
I love that. Actually, the 2 I was going to ask you was that and real estate. So you knocked off 2 of those. Third one would be the medical profession.
Medical profession.
Doctors, dentists, plastic surgeons.
Dentists. So, for example, something like dentists. Now, it all depends. So I had a client. We actually didn't run their Facebook ads. We just did social media and stuff like that. They were called Knightsbridge Dental Care. Super high end, oligarchs and oligarchs and politicians went there. So, I told Marie, the owner, I'm like, hey, why don't we offer a free teeth cleaning? And then on the front end, it's going to cost you a little bit to acquire that lead. But on the back end, you can sell them, crowns and stuff like that. Those goes into the 1,000. She was like, Iman, we are literally the most prestigious dental care practice in all of London. Do you really think we're going to run a free teeth cleaning? Yeah. And I was like, okay, fine, fair enough. But that can work for a lot of dentists, because also one thing that I would say is free teeth cleaning sounds a lot like free teeth whitening, and everyone is crazy about free teeth whitening. Everyone wants their teeth whitened. Yeah. But free teeth cleaning isn't free teeth whitening. Free teeth whitening costs 200, 300, up to $1,000, to be honest, depends on what product you use. But you can bring someone in for free teeth cleaning, which is mainly just hygiene, have that as a free offer, and be like, right at the end, because this is what I was trying to get Marie to do, but she, her practice is too prestigious, too snobby. But,
I hope they don't hear this one. Yeah.
I was like, so Marie, so at the end of it, we'll bring people in for a free teeth cleaning. And then at the end, I want your dentist to basically, tell the patient, be like, oh, do you drink coffee? Do you drink a lot of coffee or drink wine by any chance? And they'll be like, yes or no. And most of the time they'll be like, why do you ask? And then, her team can be like, oh, it's just, your teeth are quite brown. And at that point, it's like, oh,
They
okay.
hit the pain point.
Oh yeah, what could you do to help me?
Makes
You know,
sense.
and that's how you can kind of take them up that value ladder.
Beautiful. Now, as a digital marketing agency owner, how could people go about getting those clients? So what you just explained explains how to get customers into your dental practice or medical practice. But what if you're a digital marketer? You say you have your own social media marketing agency, and you want to, get in the door, because a lot of times there's gatekeepers, and there's the assistant, or you get lost in the email, or just email info. We'll get back to you if we like what you have to offer. So say someone put a gun to your head and say, hey, man, get a medical client within the next 48 hours. What would be your methods of creative prospecting in that regard?
So great question.
Putting you on the spot here, huh? Yeah.
This is one of the issues. It's like if you went to a doctor and you said, what's the best medicine? And they gave you one blanket, answer, you would hope that they would lose their license, because, they didn't ask you what's wrong with you, where does it hurt, et cetera, et cetera. So,
nuances to the question.
Yeah, I get a lot of people, they're like, oh, this outreach method is the best thing. And it's like, well, obviously you're full of shit, because first of all, in Holland, you're not allowed to cold call. There's a directory. It only costs like 20 euros or something. If you put your name on this directory, you are never allowed to receive an unsolicited call ever, right? So telling someone in Holland that cold calling is the best way to get a gym, well, that's not true, because you're gonna get fined 100K. So first of all, it depends on the niche. So if you give me a niche, I could probably give you a better answer.
Let's say plastic surgeon.
Plastic surgeon. So plastic surgeon, I have no experience with, but I have experience with a dental, obviously like Marie and...
Let's do a dentist, yeah.
Okay, so one thing is you will never ever reach the decision maker. It's just so hard to reach the decision maker, because I've just found personally with dentists, dental clinics, a lot of time the owner is actually a dentist, like they're actually practicing.
Right.
So just, cold calling doesn't work for a dentist.
Yeah.
Or at least in my experience. But once again, you got to look at all different countries, and also you have to look at the size. If it's just a one-person dental clinic, that person's gonna have a room, and then they're gonna have a phone next to them, and you're talking to the entire team, and it's just one person.
Right.
So once again, you also just got to look at size. Now, a good way to understand the scope and sort of their size is look on LinkedIn. So
Dan, that's a great idea. Yeah.
I can tell you just a company. Obviously, we've had a lot of success with Aura, like a lot of success with Aura. So there's another thing that I use, which is an EEG reader. It's called Muse. It's a meditation headband. So I was giving an example at one of my last masterminds, actually, how I'd reach out to them. So what I did was, first thing I did was I looked on LinkedIn. They have around 70 employees. I looked at
because it tells you how big the organization is on LinkedIn.
And it tells you what roles they have too.
Yes.
So I went on there. I found she was the CMO and the founder. Now, one just small little nuance is you never ever want to reach out to the social media manager or the paid traffic specialist. Never reach out to them, because what you're doing, if you're coming in as an agency, is you're putting their job on the line.
That's right, you're threatening them, yeah.
Whereas a CMO, chief marketing officer, their only objective, or the only thing they care about is the marketing department makes as much money as possible.
That's right.
They don't care if it's an agency that does it, if it's some in-house person, they don't care. The main KPI that they work off of is how much did the marketing team make. So, her name was actually Sid. I actually found it. So her name was Sid, and it took a little while to find her Facebook, but I found her Facebook. And then from there, from her Facebook, I found the old company she worked at. So then I found her email from the old company she worked at. And most of the time, people keep their emails, even if they work on. So
that's right.
What I did was I shot, live in front of the mastermind students. I showed them a 15 to 20 minute audit. So I use a thing called Loom. If you send a cold video outreach, the way I used to do it back in the day was I would screen flow. But the issue with that is you have to export it, and then you have to throw it up on YouTube or Vimeo, and that process really slows things down.
Yeah.
So what I use these days is a tool called Loom. Absolutely love it. It's a Chrome extension. You can do a recording, and then it's available immediately. I don't even know how they do it. Like, it's available within 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is Loom also tells you if someone's opened your Loom. So now you know if that person's actually seen it, right? So as I said, getting a little bit off topic from dental clinics.
No, but it makes sense, because it even proves that doesn't even matter what the niche is. It's just about having a resourceful mindset and doing whatever it takes. A lot of these interviews, people always ask me, how do you get this person and that person? It's all about finding the key people in place and then leveraging that to get to the person you want to. I didn't reach out to, Grant Cardone forever directly. Go on LinkedIn. Everybody's information, all the key people are there. You leverage that web elegantly. You're resourceful, like you're saying. You don't piss off the people you shouldn't piss off. And then it's just a matter of a numbers game at that point, right?
Now, one thing I would say is, and I was showing, as I said, In my program and to my customers, I was showing a more advanced method where you're really stacking the odds in your favor longevity wise. So one thing I'm always thinking is, what's the longevity of something? So most agency owners, when they're doing outreach, they're hitting one person at a time via phone. They're hitting one person at a time via messenger. And the thing is, the longevity of that is a day or 3 days or 5 days.
Right.
Whereas if you can start to build a small niche authority on Facebook and LinkedIn, so if you become a niche authority as the person that delivers results for dental clinics, and you start to, a lot of these Facebook groups, you have dental clinic owners UK.
Yeah.
And you start to join in there, and you start to join in, and same thing on LinkedIn, you start to add all these connections. And I'm still learning LinkedIn. That's, I guess, the one part of my outreach that I'm, my girlfriend's teaching me that.
Nice. There's a plug for Natasha.
Yeah. So, and then you start to do these value posts. The best thing, you'll come to realize that at a certain point in your agency, the best way to get clients is inbound and referrals.
That's right.
Right?
Or network, yeah.
But the thing is, there's a great book called Power versus Force. When you first start your agency, I said, I can't teach people, build a small niche authority, get great inbound, and get great referrals. That's something I can't really teach. So at first, you need to do force, which is cold outreach, cold calling, cold messaging, cold emailing, networking and referrals. Like, that's force, where you just got to force to make it happen. And at a certain point, you got power. And it's the same thing for you. When you first got Grant Cardone, or
Dude, first I got Grant Cardone. I waited outside of a restaurant for 2 hours in Beverly Hills. I got in touch with assistant after assistant, and things started taking long. But I got in the mix. I literally stalked him, waited outside a restaurant because I saw on his Instagram story. I live in LA. He lives in Florida. So I saw that he was in a restaurant in Beverly Hills. Waited outside the restaurant because I saw on his Instagram story he was there. Waited 2 hours for him to come out. Pitched him, and he gave me the interview, and then we developed a friendship with him. Led to Ed Milet, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I talk about force.
So what that was right there was force. You
resourcefulness,
made it happen. Resourcefulness. When people talk about hustle, which I don't really like, but that was hard work, resourcefulness. Just making it happen. That was force. When we set this up, that was power.
Yeah.
Hey, Iman, do you want to do do you want to come on for Passionate Few? Yeah, of course.
How's Friday?
You're Omar. How's Friday?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. That's power. That's force. When you first start, you really got to force things through compared to power. So I can't teach people power. I have to teach them force to begin with. I have to teach them how to send an expertly crafted cold loom or a cold email, or use the fake audit strategy, or teach them how to cold call, et cetera, et cetera. But the cool thing is, once you get to a certain point in your agency, you start to get referrals and you start to get inbound. Now, another really cool thing to do is build a case study funnel. So that's a good way to indoctrinate leads. Is indoctrinate and vet leads. So you build a case study funnel. I think mine is how my agency is helping the new breed of e-commerce and info product clients scale aggressively, or something like that. It goes into a 1 hour thing where I'm giving a bunch of value. I'm also giving them some real world case studies, and at the end they can book in a call with me. And I have all their information before the call. Now, one of the cool things about that is you can actually retarget people. So this is a small little nuance, something a little bit more advanced, but I used to think it was really stupid to have a website, and I guess I still kind of do. For a long time, for 5 months, the 5 months I scaled, most aggressively last year, I had no website. Because someone hacked my website because it was super old version of WordPress.
Yeah,
so I didn't even realize.
Easy to get in, yeah.
Yeah. But one of the cool things you can do is just use ClickFunnels. Just build a case study funnel, put a pixel on there, because this is longevity. This is doubling down.
ClickFunnels, yeah.
Because here's the thing: if I reach out to, in a month, I reach out to 1,000 business owners, and they click to my case study funnel. To be honest, I don't even care if they watch my case study funnel. If they click to my case study funnel, that's it. They're pixel tracked. And then what that means is, in Facebook, I can build an audience. So even if I reach out to 1,000 people, maybe only 100 people watch the case study funnel, or you can even just do this if you have a website. If you have 1,000 people click to your website, maybe only 100 people will do something productive on there, actually hear you out. The other 900 will just leave and just think you're an idiot.
Right.
But when they've been tracked with that pixel, now you can start to retarget them. And I can tell you honestly, there is nothing more powerful as an agency owner than having someone a cold prospect that comes to you, who just thinks you're some dummy, doesn't even want to hear you out. And for the next 30 to 60 days with a high frequency, you aggressively retarget them, which isn't even that much.
Yeah.
And then you get them to book in a discovery call. That is really, really powerful, because then you're showing them that you know what you're doing firsthand.
So you could say, well, if you want proof, you wouldn't be on this call right now.
Yeah, how'd you get on this call? It was a retargeting ad.
I can help you do the same for your business or your brand.
Exactly.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
Well, I love that, man. I think we covered almost everything. Now, before we get into my last question, where can people find out more about you, your free trainings, follow you on social media, things like that?
Yeah.
If you could share it with the audience.
All right, awesome. So right before this interview, me and Omar actually set up a free training. So I think you'll leave the link right below.
That's right.
I've touched on as much as I can, in this interview when it comes to running a digital marketing agency, the different services you can offer, the best way to reach out to clients depending on niche. But we really scratched the surface in this interview. There's only so much you can do. So we whipped up this free 90-minute training. The link is right below. And then apart from that, on YouTube, I'm IMAN GADZHI. So I think that's pretty much about it.
Very cool, man. And then my last question for you is, knowing what you know now from lessons going from zero high school dropout to millionaire and beyond, for people out there, whether they're teenagers in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, at any age, who have their goals or ambitions, whether entrepreneurs or not, and they're looking at you for advice or wisdom. If IMAN GADZHI could, condense his best piece of wisdom into 60 to 90 seconds or so, what would your best piece of wisdom be if you could condense everything you got so far at the ripe young age of 19 and share it with them to take their business to the next level? If you could look into the camera, or if you're listening to this on any audio platform, pay attention to this. But what would be your best piece of wisdom to make your vision, your dreams a reality?
Well, I think I would just give you a couple different buzz phrases, and we've actually mentioned some today. But first things first is work on your business, not in it. So start building systems that once you build them, you can kind of set and forget, and you can move on to the next thing. And always think about IPAs, income producing activities. So that's number one. Number two is kind of what we said, which is you don't have business problems. You have personal problems that are manifesting in your business. And as I said, after having 1,000 plus, soon enough a couple thousand students, I have realized that the ones that scale and succeed are the ones that focus on, a good morning routine, a good nighttime routine, their health, and their meditation, those sorts of stuff. And I guess the last thing that I would say is wherever you go, there you are. Don't think that once you hit 6 figures or 7 figures, all your problems are going to go away. Your problems are still going to be there. And if, I guess that's one thing. You asked me, what would you do differently? If I could do anything differently, I would have made a commitment to myself from the beginning that no matter how much money I make or how much my business grows, I'm always going to put my presence, my happiness, my gratitude first. Because the thing is, I kind of lost myself for a bit, not by doing stupid stuff, but just by thinking that, once I reach that next checkpoint, that's when I'll be happy. And, I guess that's kind of why I got it tattooed on myself.
You'll never forget now.
Yeah, I can never forget now. Is wherever you go, there you are. You think you go on that amazing holiday, you think you drive that amazing whip, wherever you go, there you are. However you feel now is a state of mind, and you carry that through anywhere in life.
Very true. And that also speaks to people who sort of try to always escape, those people who are always moving or changing businesses or changing relationships or wherever. It's like they're trying to find some sort of inner happiness by changing the environment. But it speaks true that everywhere you go, if you don't solve the inner world, if you don't get that congruent, then you really have nothing, because everywhere you go, there you are. I love that. Well, thanks so much for sharing your story, IMAN. Hope people enjoy the free training. And you guys can check that free training out in the description below. And lastly, we have a game. So every interview, we have a game called First Things First. So very easy game. The way the game works is I'm going to rifle off 10 words or phrases, and you just tell me the first word or phrase that comes to mind. Make sense? So pretty easy. The game's called First Things First. Again, to repeat the rules, I'm just going to rifle off 10 words or phrases, so I'm saying one at a time. And then it's a relation game, so you just tell me the first word or phrase that comes to mind. The only rule is that you can't repeat yourself twice. Got it?
Okay.
Okay,
Awesome.
cool. You ready? All right, first word, money.
Freedom.
Second word, your girlfriend.
Rock.
Oh, I like that. Third one, social media marketing agency.
I can do a phrase. Nightmare if you do it wrong, absolute bliss if you do it right.
Your mom.
Hero.
Your past.
A blessing.
The tough times.
Appreciate them.
Your future.
So much can go right, so much can go wrong.
Passion.
What gets you through the hard times?
Your legacy.
Education system.
I love that. And then the last one, you ready? Fulfillment.
Here and now, don't run away from it. Address it now, because it's just going to magnify. You're just going to get. I'm going to go on a tangent here, but
Go ahead.
it's just going to be worse and worse if you think that once you hit that checkpoint or something, that's when it's going to happen. Because the thing is, for a lot of people, is a lot of people live with enough happiness knowing that, once I get to that point, then I'll be happy. Like, at least they have that hope. The issue is, once you get there, you don't even have hope anymore. So that's when it really sinks in that, wherever you go, there you are.
Love that. Well, thanks so much for being here with us, Iman.
My pleasure.
You guys can follow and check us out in the description below, where Iman shares his free 90-minute training, as well as check us out on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, as well as YouTube. And until next time, thank you guys for being one of the passionate few.
If you guys enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that subscribe button right now, because every week we bring you the very best in personal development content, interviews, and insights to help inspire you to take your life and your dreams and make them a reality. And also, if you want to know how to book dream guests the same way I have, you can check the link below for my top 3 secrets. So if you have a podcast or a show or whatever it is and you want to collaborate with them, if you click that link below, I'll give you those top 3 secrets to help you get in touch with anybody. And also, don't forget that The Passionate Few is available on media platforms as well. So you can subscribe to the podcast. And until next time, thank you for being one of the passionate few.